All right. What would you say, as we're sitting here in the middle of February, is the number one need for the 49ers going into this offseason?
Well, I mean, look at their defensive line. You got Nick Bosa, you got Eric Armstead, and then who do you have after that?
Yeah.
Um,
A
so
lot
I
of free
think
agents there. A lot of turnover there.
there's a
There's a lot
lot
of
of
pending.
turnover. Figuring, I mean, they go into the season with big numbers. They go through the offseason with 16 guys at that position. Then they winnow it down to about 12 for the regular season. Two of those guys go on the practice squad, and 10 are on the active roster. So they basically need to figure out, let's say it's Bosa, Armstead, Drake Jackson, Javon Kinlaw, and Kalia Davis,
Givens.
a 2022 draft pick. Those are the guys who are signed right now for next season. And then maybe you add Kevin Givens, who's a restricted free agent. So that I think is 6. You need to figure out 4 more spots. Of the guys who are becoming free agents, like Charles Omenihu. Do you spend some money on another defensive lineman? My take is that you go big on defensive end, or you go fairly big. You
As far
basically
as retaining, you mean?
What's that?
As far
No,
as
as
retaining?
far as bringing somebody in, I
Oh,
feel
okay.
feel like you really need a better complement to Nick Bosa than what they've had. Last year the 49ers decided, okay, we're going to get a cornerback. We're going to spend money on a cornerback. That's going to be the one spot that we spend money on. And they got Charvarius Ward, and it worked out really well. I think they need to do the same thing with DN this year. And I don't know who that guy is. Ngakwe it will be out there. He sort of fits the bill. I don't think he would break the bank at this point. He does one thing very well, which is come in off basically the wide 9 on passing downs. That's a specialty. So you sign him to do that, and then you sort of dress the rest of the line up around that. And so maybe your first pick, end of the third round, is a defensive tackle. You're not going to find a world beater there, but I think that you're looking for a DJ Jones type, and DJ Jones was a 6th-round pick back in, what was it, 2017, I think. It's possible to find a good functional defensive end, certainly somebody that you can rotate as a rookie at the end of the third round. So that to me is where you begin in the offseason. Obviously, you have to think about your own offensive line and which of those guys you're going to retain and how you're going to replace them. But I think the core there with, like I said, with Banks and Burford is very good. And if you can get Brendel in on a long-term deal, 5-year deal or whatever it is, I think that's a pretty good start.
If you could only re-sign 1 or 2 of your pending free agent D linemen, who between Ebukam, Omenihu, Ridgeway, Jordan Willis, Kerry Hyder, T.Y. McGill, Mo Hurst, those are the guys. Let's say Givens stays because he is restricted. Out of those 7 free agents, who do you think they will prioritize retaining? Who do you think they hold in the highest regard for of that group?
Omenihu was probably their second best defensive lineman this year, just given the fact that Eric Armstead was injured for so many games. I think 7 games or so. Omenihu was the guy. Without Omenihu, they have just a terrible season, I think. He filled in so many different spots. Now, the issue with Omenihu is that he's not exactly perfect for what you need. He's sort of a base defensive end and a passing down defensive tackle, which is great. But I'm not sure you want to pay top dollar for that.
Does his off-field issue factor in here at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I just checked in with the DA's office the other day. They're still considering whether to bring charges. If they bring charges, then I don't think you can sign him. So that's kind of looming over everything as well. And maybe that tamps down his asking price. I don't know what how that affects it, but that's part of the equation that they have to kind of figure out. But my point is that he's not he's ideal in the sense that you want him part of your rotation, but do you want to pay him starter money for the type of defense or that your defensive line that you're running. I'm not sure. I mean, of that group, I would say that Jordan Willis, because I think you would get him dirt cheap. I don't think there would be a lot of competition for him, and so he's part of that rotation. He also plays a lot of special teams. He's a 275-pound guy who plays on your kickoff units. My point is that you'd be getting a lot of bang for your buck with Jordan Willis, because I don't think that buck would be very high. So I would keep him, and I would think about Hassan Ridgeway as well, as a run stuffer, somebody that that could come in and give you quality minutes each week. And then you bring in one kind of special defensive end, and then you find another special defensive tackle, and then I think you've got your group.
It's interesting. I had a guy who knows the league pretty well looking at the list and just, trying to kind of guess along. He has no sources or anything, but he does work in the NFL. And he said Zach Allen from Arizona was an interesting guy, and also thought that maybe they would have interest in bringing back Arden Key, who's also on that list as a free agent from Jacksonville. I'd be excited for both those. I thought Key was a really underrated player. But I think Zach Allen, I could totally picture, he's almost kind of a little bigger bodied guy than I was originally thinking. I was thinking more of a speed rusher, like a D Ford, somebody like 250, 255, but they do kind of like bigger ends, and Zach Allen is intriguing, and you'd be taking him away from Arizona in your division. And he's had some pretty good games, if I recall, against the 49ers. Sometimes teams are kind of swayed by that.
Yeah, he jumps out as well. I mean, I think the 49ers would use him as an interior rusher. I don't know if he's too much of a duplicate of Eric Armstead or what. Yeah, he's one of the better ones. Marcus Davenport is probably the best.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
All around defensive end. I don't know what he's going to cost. He's been just an injury nightmare for the Saints. He's injured all the time. So that's a red flag there. I mean, each of these guys, it's Goldilocks and the Three Bears situation, where each of these guys, there's something, wrong with each of them. Like another guy who kind of jumped out to me as sort of a smart budget guy is Matt Ioannidis. He was with Washington Wilkes for a while. He's with the Panthers last couple of years. So he's been with Steve Wilkes, the new defensive coordinator. He's another guy that could play on the inside. He'd give you a little bit of Kinlaw insurance, I think. Ioannidis plus Armstead might be kind of a fun. Say you got Bosa, Armstead, Ioannidis, and Ngakoue. That's a pretty good third down pass rush package, I think, if you're the 49ers.
I like that guess of Ioannidis, because Ioannidis he does anchor really well against the run, and he gives you a little bit more pass rush than you think, and he's just a tough guy. And Wilkes just had him last year with Carolina, and he probably could lure him to come over, and he's not going to get a super high price tag. What do you think as far as Javon Kinlaw? You think Kinlaw is a trade candidate? Do you think what did you make of Eric Armstead defending him? I just feel like Armstead's kind of like the dad in that situation. I did an interview with Kinlaw earlier this year, and man, when he talked about Eric, he talked about him in such glowing terms, like Eric is truly his mentor. And I just feel like Eric felt like everybody was pointing the finger at Kinlaw, and he just wanted to kind of say, hey man, I had a lot to do with that, even if it, that doesn't necessarily absolve Kinlaw from the nightmarish tape that he had in that game. But what's your feeling on where they sit with Javon? I kind of thought, and Dave Lombardi brought this up, and I think it's a good point. I thought that they maybe brought him back a couple weeks too early. Like maybe there was 3 to 5 games in those knees, and they brought him back couple weeks before. They maybe should have waited and see if they'd gotten better play, because I thought his play kind of got worse and worse and worse and worse as the thing progressed. And that's just, I'm not grading it out, I'm just watching it. Where are they with Kinlaw in your mind?
I mean, if that's the case, that's bad news, because you would expect that curve to go in the opposite direction. And they, they waited a long time. I mean, they basically waited until they couldn't wait anymore. I mean, they had to open that window at some point if they were going to play him. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a sense that they're trying to salvage something out of this guy. I mean, it was a big deal when he was drafted. He was going to replace DeForest Buckner, and hasn't come close to that for reasons beyond his control, obviously. But they have the ability to give him the 5th-year option on May 1. Him and Brandon Ayuk, both first-round picks in 2020. I think Ayuk gets it. I don't think Kinlaw gets it. I think this means that this is his last season. So I don't see how they can rely on him to be a 75% of the snaps a game player for them when he's just been able to do a fraction of that and didn't play very well in the most important game of the year for them. So that's why we need to talk about Ioannidis and Zach Allen and free agent defensive tackles and draft defensive tackles. They need to start thinking about very seriously about that position, because it was lacking this year, especially when Eric Armstead wasn't in there. Like I said, Amenahue did a yeoman's work kind of filling in and kind of plugging the holes in the dike. But I don't think that they can go through another season with that same idea that it's going to be Armstead and Kinlaw in the middle, and they're going to be good. They need to figure out a better plan than that.